Meeting calls to order. Today is Tuesday, January 15th, Town Council meeting in a workshop to discuss organizational review for sewer and DPW.
Councilman Licciardi?
Here.
Councilwoman Williamson? Here. Councilman Messier?
Here.
Council Vice President D'Amico?
Here.
Council President Goslin?
Here.
There is a quorum. Organizational Review and Business Practice Evaluation Report for the West Warwick Sewer Commission. Mr. Charles Lombardi of CWLO and M Solutions LLC will discuss his findings and respond to questions from the Town Council and town officials. This review will include the management, operations, and maintenance of the West Warwick wastewater treatment plant and collection system.
Whoever wants to come up first. I'm going to start off. I think most of us got to read a lot of this, and Ernie, you gave a suggestion on where to start.
Yes, I believe because of the time allotted for our discussion, if we start with key findings and recommendations, and that will be on page
20.
Thank you, Bernie.
I can, is this on?
Before we begin, not to be an obstructionist, but I've really took what the solicitor said to heart last week during our meeting as far as OMA violations, and I may be reading into this a little bit too much. If I am, please tell me. So I read the agenda. We paid a lot of money for these reports. We voted to pay the money for the reports. And Mr. Lombardi did the reports, did both of them. Should he be the one presenting these reports, as it says on the agenda? Does it matter? Are we in violation?
No, he's here.
Okay.
You're going to start with your department heads, and then the fill-in questions that you may have as it relates to the report would go Mr. Lombardi.
Okay.
So remember, the department head's looking at it first through the town manager. Now it's before you as a whole. So both department heads are here. Mr. Lombardi's here. So your ability to question them is for tonight for the public meeting, for the public workshop. So the announcement and/or posting of the agenda is fine.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so, is this on? I guess it's on.
Yep.
So on page 20, key findings and recommendations, what I was going to do is go through them real quickly. If you have any questions, I certainly can answer them. As you know, the assistant superintendent has been moved up to superintendent with a 1 year probationary period with 2 reviews during that 1 year, one after 6 months and one after 1 year. And per this number 1 here, based on the staff interviews, the assistant superintendent questions whether that person would become a good superintendent. I have worked closely with him in the past 5 years, actually, off and on, but in the last 4 months since we moved him up to superintendent, I feel he's made a good transition. But I also would like to explain how we came to that, moving him up to superintendent. We went out for applications 3 times. We offered the position of superintendent twice. One to a project manager from Veolia in Fall River, who turned us down because of the salary. The second one was a longtime wastewater worker who is in private sales now, but had all the qualifications. We offered him the job, and he turned us down. So at that point, we had a few other applications. Harrison by far was the most qualified, and that's how we came up with this 1 year probationary period with two reviews. So that's number 1. Also in the report, it recommended a part-time, on number 2, a part-time COO, which is what I've been performing since Harrison's been moved up. I think it works. I think it's worked out great. Harrison has had full operation of the treatment plant. He hasn't had to worry about any of the administrative parts at this point because I've been handling that. When I was a superintendent, trying to handle the administrative part and the operation of the treatment plant is part of the reason for this report, and the communication wasn't always there. I've seen it much better. So we have done number 2 for this budget year. You'll see that in the new budget coming up. Number 3, the union contract. I don't know how much you want me to get into that, but one of the big issues I have at the treatment plant, and I've had since 2012 when I arrived, is anytime there's a position opening, it's not based on qualification, it's strictly based on seniority per the union contract. So if somebody with 25 years experience wants that job but doesn't do that job, doesn't have any knowledge of that job, he or she gets it over the person who's really been qualified and been doing that job. So it really holds the process of people moving up in the industry to based strictly on seniority. And I've seen it several times since I've been here, since 2012, that people that get the job are not the ones that really deserve that job, and not the people that are putting in. And I'll give you an example right now. We have a chief operator who's looking to move up to the assistant position, and I think we all talked about this. I've gone to DEM, I've gone to the board certification to try to get him up to that position. If he becomes the assistant and that position of chief operator opens up, the person with the most seniority gets that position. It may be a truck driver who has no knowledge of the treatment plant, of the operation, but he has the most seniority. Per the union contract, he gets the job.
What if it's a safety issue? What if you're creating, I understand the union contract and all that, but what if you're creating a safety problem at the plant, which will affect the other staff, it'll affect the public?
It's certainly a concern, but the way the contract is written, the most senior person gets it, and really there's no safety. And I can tell you, since I've seen it, I've seen it there where the most senior person gets the job, and the person under that person trains the person that's a chief operator or whatever it may be, a chief of maintenance, chief of operations, whatever it may be. So that's, in my opinion, that's one issue we really need to look at. And I could go on all night about that, but I know we're short on time here. 4 is about infiltration, and that's a long-term issue that we have during wet weather. That's something that, as the town, as the sewer authority, we need to look into on how we're going to cut down on infiltration inflow, because when it rains, the flows, go up 4 or 5 times of what they normally are when non-rainy season. So that's something that's going to cost some money, and we need to get into. But we have started doing some of that. We're doing in-house. We're doing manhole inspections now. We've probably completed about 60% of the town, pulling every sewer manhole cover in the town, looking in to make sure that the flow is flowing correctly, or there's not inflow coming in, or there's not a broken line, or things like that. So the maintenance staff has started that. Jetting lines, number 5, we do jet the lines, but in this report it states that they come back for break and lunch times, and they recommend that that's stopped. And Harrison's here. I know they stopped coming back for breaks, correct? So they're not coming back for breaks anymore, which does allow us a little bit more time out there on the road. The sewer camera, we've had maintenance issues with it. Number 6, we do have a quote right now to upgrade the camera itself, so hopefully we'll get that done here shortly. 6, did I skip 7? The CMOM, I'm not sure if you remember what the CMOM report is, but that's a report every year that it's a consent order from the EPA back in 2007, 2008, that the Town of West Warwick was issued to upgrade and improve their collection system. And that's a report that we do every year. And that's also part of this maintenance program to reduce infiltration inflow and also repair any lines, clean lines. So that's a long-term process, and we are doing that, but not as fast as we probably should be. Inventory management, organize the storage area. That's all been done. That's been completed. At one point, the storage area just had all the storage, the spare parts just thrown into one room where they weren't categorized or anything. That's all been taken apart and done now. The centrifuge, number 9, recommendation to keep the centrifuge operational. We did complete that, and I did mention that at the last sewer subcommittee meeting. I don't think I mentioned it at the sewer commission. The last sewer subcommittee meeting that I was very happy with the staff. We completed most of that work in-house, which is very rare. Most of that work has always been sent out, but that was all done by plant staff. And we do have quite a few new employees down there, and I've seen a lot of interest in getting that type of work done in-house, which saves us money. As far as number 11 goes, Charlie talks about considering redeploying operation staff 7 to 3 to various shifts. That's kind of Charlie and I disagreed on this one, and he talks about taking and shutting down third shift and going to just SCADA, which is the computer program. So if there's an alarm, it would come in, be sent out to the standby person, and they would come in. I personally don't like that, and I haven't really gone down that road yet, for the simple reason, if there's somebody at the treatment plant around the clock 24/7, which there is 365 days a year, if a block up comes in, we know about it immediately. They call the treatment plant personnel calls out. If there's a power outage, there's somebody at the treatment plant. Certain equipment has to be restarted. They're there at the treatment plant. If there's not anybody there, then we have to get somebody in, and you're losing valuable time. So, and we did have an incident actually right after this report come out where we lost the power to the treatment plant, if you remember correctly, and we had to report it to DM at 2 o'clock in the morning. We had a major power failure. The electric line coming in we had a short in it, shut the whole plant down, and also shut the generator down, so the plant was in complete darkness. But we had somebody at the treatment plant. There was somebody there when it happened, and within 15 minutes, he had more help coming in. So if he wasn't there, it would have been a little bit longer response time.
Bernie, I assume you consider those hours in your budget?
Yes, yes.
So this computer would let someone know that there's an issue. And what would the response time be? Somebody has to crawl out of bed
And assuming that works correctly. Yeah, somebody,
I think it's kind of like on the same idea of flying in a plane. So there are many planes today with technology that can land themselves, but I know I'm not getting on a plane without a pilot. It's just that comfort level, knowing that. I agree, that's my comfort level. Laying in bed, knowing that somebody's at that treatment plant 365 days a year around the clock. What's the location?
But you got to remember, it creates overtime, and that's what Charlie was looking at.
Right, which I understand.
If somebody calls out sick, somebody has to be called in, and correct, all that creates overtime, yes. And that's what Charlie was looking
So when
at.
somebody's there, somebody calls for backup,
Yes.
is there a procedure in place where the people are local for the backup, or is it just
Someone's on call, essentially.
right? Is the on-call person live down the street, or do they live
Okay,
in Warwick? Or
What we do for backups is, whoever's at the treatment plant gets the call that there's a block up at your house, say. He picks up the phone. There's a maintenance employee on standby 365 days a year.
Rotated schedule.
Rotate it once a week. Every week they rotate the schedule, and there's 6 mechanics, so they rotate it around. Every 6 weeks they're on call for a week. If they get the call, they have to come in. They immediately have to get in their car or wherever they are and come in. Then they go, depending on where it is, sometimes we use 2 people, sometimes we use 3 people. If it's on Main Street where there's heavy traffic, then we have 3 people come in. If it's on a back road, then we have 2 people come in. But there's always a maintenance employee on standby. That's something we just started in the last year or so.
So can I go back a little bit to a few numbers? We're at number 3, my point with the union contracts.
Sure.
If you have someone on this, working the 3rd shift, or on the mechanic on standby, and it rotates, that person who doesn't know anything about mechanics is on standby, and they come in, could
Only,
that cause a safety problem?
only the maintenance employees are on standby.
So, if you're I'm not looking to stop
Yeah,
anyone
no,
from getting ahead in their career, but if you have someone, like you said, that's not qualified for the position, and they get that position because of seniority, and they happen to be in that rotation, and an issue happens, is that a concern? I mean, for me, it would be a concern. May or may not happen, but
If they elect to take a position in, say, maintenance, I think that's what you're asking.
Yes.
They take a position in maintenance, they go on that call-out list, and they're not qualified. First of all, I would not put them on that call-out list until they are qualified. So it may take 6 months. Same as a new employee. When we hire a new employee, say we hire a new employee from outside, he doesn't go on that maintenance call list until myself or Harrison feels that he's ready to go on that,
okay,
for that reason.
all right.
So even if even if it was by the union contract, the most seniority person gets it, he's not qualified, he's not going on that call-out list until, because that call-out list is not only for backups, but it's also for the treatment plant,
Yeah.
pump stations, you know.
All right, clear
Okay.
as mud. Thank you.
What number were we on? 11?
12. Long.
Again, CMOM, this is all related to the collection system. And Charlie's saying, develop and implement a well-defined CMOM program, includes pump stations. Again, those are things that we are working on, upgrading inspection sheets, inspections of manholes, cameraing of sewer lines, pipeline cleaning. So those are things that we are working on. The Vector Jet, we do own one of those. Recommendation, Sewer Commission owns a Vector Jet capable of lifting 35 feet ahead with suction hose and extensions. It could be used to clean pump stations. We have started using that to clean pump stations. The 14 was the maintenance unit, has not been trained on PACP, that's pipeline assessment. We have, since this report, sent 2 people, and they are now certified in that PACP, MACP training. So we do have a maintenance person and our chief of operations. JobCal, we have researched. JobCal is a work order system. We do have a work order system, but it's not all that clear. And they've been using it since before I was there. So we do have a work order system, but Charlie was suggesting that we combine it all and get it all into a much neater work order system. And we have looked at 3 or 4 different firms, and we've had them come in and give us a little demonstration on them, but at this time we haven't really done anything on that. What's that? Yeah, and Harrison it stated that we do have a contract with our existing firm until May of this year. And again, 16 is dealing with the same thing, the JobCal, 4 different work orders for different types of work. That's one thing. If we change to a new work order system, that's one thing we'll be changing. SOPs, we do have quite a few SOPs, and they have been working on updating all the SOPs. and Charlie mentions with the assistance of the operators, and that's been, we have been working on that. We have 5 or 6 new SOPs just since this report is done, and I do have them in my folder there. O&M manuals, again, unfortunately, all the O&M manuals are there, and again, Charlie and I had a little disagreement on this, but they are out there. Unfortunately, not all of the operators would take the time to read them, so we've been trying to get them to get into the O&M manuals and read them. And the centrifuge, that was a big issue with the centrifuge. It was a brand-new piece of equipment. They come in, did the training, and then everything kind of stopped. So we do have the O&M manuals there, and we encourage the operators, management, everybody to look into read those O&M manuals and get to know them. Backlog, number 19, the Assistant Super and Chief of Maintenance need to focus on this and improve their performance in respecting staff's role. They do have a meeting every morning at 6:30 to go over backlogged items. And again, some of those backlogged items that Charlie was talking about have been completed. But it also is a work schedule for the day, and they assign the assignments at that time. So every morning at 6:30, the superintendent, the chief of operations, chief of maintenance, and the electrician all sit down and go over daily activity. 20, he's recommending that we bring in a new electrician because our electrician was retiring. We actually have hired a new electrician probably 6 months ago now. 6 months ago now, outstanding, and he's doing a great job. It was we finally stole one from another plant, so he's doing a great job, and I don't anticipate any issues there. Pump station maintenance, again, that's to go through and make a pump station inspection list, critical spare parts list, which they are doing, but I also just want to throw in here that we have just upgraded the Hilltop pump station, Governor Hills pump station, and beginning of February, the pumps are supposed to be in for Quaker pump station the end of January. So we are moving forward on redoing a lot of the pump stations. 22, operator 1, 2, and spare, very similar roles. I fully agree with this one. Amend the job descriptions to operator 1, operator 2, and spare job, and create one operator position, which would enhance, you'd be able to use the flexibility of all the operators. But again, that's another union discussion. And that's it.
I'm just going through, and I might be the only one who has this because it's 2016. This report was done by the same organization, CWL, in 2016, Organizational Review and Business Practice and Evaluation. I went through this last night because I remember this report, and I have the 2018 report. A lot of this, and I want to know what happened over the last 2 years, is contradicting itself. One of the things that he had in 2016 was eliminate second shift of the treatment plant. Now in this one, he's going to eliminate third shift. So
There's only one report that was done. So I don't know if the dates,
your name's all over this, and I have it here in my hand, and it came here to town. CWL.
I know, but where did it come?
was
This
it?
presented to us back in 2016. This was given to us and presented to us in 2016. I'm the only one who probably has it, because, well, actually, you guys might have it.
I don't think it was 16.
Well, everything in here says 2016.
When did you get hired? It was, actually, I'll tell you.
In 2016, the wastewater engaged an outside consultant to evaluate the organizational structure of various wastewater. If you want a copy of it, I mean, I'd be more than happy to let you make a copy of it, but I'm going through my paperwork last night, because I remember this review, and I was comparing the recommendations, and I wanted to see what the difference was from 16 to 18.
There was an election in 16, in November.
So that's why I'm wondering, you may or may not.
And this, yeah, we weren't. I was
November of
when it came
17,
in.
the kickoff meeting. Yeah, it would have been before. So I don't know, maybe that's a date, maybe the date's wrong.
Are you saying the recommendation?
But if it's 17, you guys would have this. Does anybody have this?
When?
There's no date on it, that's the it just says 2016.
No.
And I'm looking at the recommendations there, and there's recommendations there. There's 21 recommendations, there's 23 here, and I compared those recommendations. In those recommendations, it said get rid of second shift, and this,
David, this might be Warwick. This is Warwick.
That might be Warwick.
so how did we get that?
Maybe he gave it to you.
I didn't give that to you. I don't
Hold
know.
on, guys, one at a time. This says in 2016, the WSA engaged an outside consultant. That's the Warwick suit.
The Warwick Sewer Authority did have a
This is Warwick.
So is that the same,
This is
CWL,
Warwick,
yes.
West Warwick.
I did one for them, but it's not the same in any way, shape, or form.
Well, it's a similar,
No, that's why I
similar
was looking at the
form, similar
recommendations, as I
format,
was-
just different information.
I'm missing a W then, so, that's my fault, that's why I'm
But
asking.
you may have got that from, maybe
I'm
even,
asking where
maybe
I got
from me, just when we were presenting Charlie to do this organizational review. We may have given you to say, this is what he did in Warwick.
That's why I'm asking, like, why I'm reading this.
Yeah, we've only had one,
Same group.
we've only had one report done.
All right,
Same format, different info.
Different info.
right, church wrong. Because we're responsible for some of Warwick anyway, but not all of
Yes,
it.
yeah.
Right. That answers my question. I'm just trying to compare apples to apples.
But we disagree on that, so.
Any questions for Bernie?
I have a few.
Jay?
Going back to the beginning of the report, I put them together by page. It'd be for either Bernie or Charlie, but, and this is more for in-house knowledge, I guess, but, where, number one, where it says staff interviews on page 5. You mentioned the inventory control and management is very poor, and there's no list of spare parts at the treatment plant, causing staff to spend extended time looking for parts that often are not available. Is that something that's being looked at and corrected?
Yes.
Actually, you completed that in number 8.
Correct, that was in number
Okay.
8.
And where it says here, a majority of the staff, I know there's staff interviews, people have different opinions, but a majority of the staff would like to be in a separate local. Is that an option? Do people, is it an
I don't-
option to them or no?
They were very vocal about that. I don't know how that works here, if there could be a separate local, but a lot of the staff members were not happy with the existing local and how the contract pertained to them.
Them
And
at the sewer department?
at the sewer commission, yes.
All right. That, I know the union contracts and all that, correct?
Department of Labor would have to come in, that type of stuff.
All right.
That's an administrative action that would take place if that group decided to either break away from the existing local to start its own, but that's something on the union's end, not the town's end.
Thank you. I'm trying to cover, I made a lot of highlights, but I know you've answered some already, so just bear with me.
Bernie, is this something that you continually refer back to make sure you're following the recommendations that Mr. Lombardi's made?
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I say some of the items have been done, and it's something that we continuously work on. I think the biggest part we need to work on right now is the collection system maintenance and operation as far as cleaning, jetting, cammering. But that may be a project that we look to sub out or at least get some help on. I mean, you got 30-inch trunk lines that need to be cleaned, and my staff or the staff down there is not really capable of that. So they do have a lot of firms, and in fact, I think probably 15, 20 years ago, they did do that in town. They did clean the 30-inch trunk line, and you really should want to try to do that every 10 years, so that's something that we need to look at. And when I say the 30-inch trunk line, that's where most of your side streets all discharge into, is that main trunk line, which eventually ends up at the treatment plant. I mean, the 8-inch lines on the side streets, the town is certainly capable of cleaning those, and we have cleaned a lot of them. And the manhole inspection, that's something that we just started since this report.
Bernie, you said there's some things you disagree with, obviously. Who's looking at that? And I know the sewer subcommittee's probably looking at that as a group, but it could be your opinion, it could be somebody else's opinion that it would work or not work. How do you confirm that it's a good decision or a bad decision?
Again, the biggest one was the closing of third shift, shutting down third shift.
I agree.
And it's probably more of a Harrison decision now as being superintendent, but when I was there as superintendent, I strongly felt that I wanted somebody around the clock, 365 days a year. So until somebody tells me I can't do that, I mean, and that would be the sewer commission, or in a budget hearing that we got to cut back or something like that. But and again, when I brought Charlie in here.
I'm sorry to interrupt, can I ask another question on that?
Sure.
Because we're a regional plan, it would be the sewer commission, but would Coventry, Warwick, Cranston all have a decision in that also?
Not for our collection system, or not for
Well, they utilize the plans, nobody's.
yeah, I mean, they certainly, I mean, they're on the sewer, they're representative in the sewer subcommittee meetings and the sewer commission. So they certainly could voice their opinion, yes. I mean, we do have somebody from Coventry on the sewer subcommittee that regularly attends. Other than that, we don't really see too many from Warwick or Cranston or West Greenwich, East Greenwich, Situate. But just to go back a little bit, when I brought Charlie in, and Charlie, I felt did a great job, but I told him I wanted an honest report. I wanted the truth. And if I was part of the problem, I wanted to know it. If the assistant was part of the problem, I wanted to know it. If it was the employees, I wanted to know it. So I think he did that, and I think you'll see that in the report, that it's not all the employees. Management has some faults here, and that's what we need to work on. But I do think it's come a long ways in the past 2 years. I mean, we've really hired some excellent people. We've followed this a little bit, and things are certainly better than they were 3 years ago.
When you say, Bernie, in here, Charlie, when you said management establishing a performance goal, I know you talked about that, of inspecting all 2,930 manholes ASAP. Are you looking at, is that over a year, 2 years, 3 years?
I'd like to get it done in a year, but that's pretty aggressive. Like I said, we did about 60% of them this year, and we bought some new equipment for it. We trained a couple of our maintenance employees to go out there. And what's your goal, Charlie? How many a day?
22.
22 a day, and they were averaging 22 a day.
So when you start at 1, I'm just trying to think future, and you go 1 all the way to 2930, are you starting at 1 again immediately after 2930? Is this like
Can I take this?
Yeah, if you want.
So, the standard protocol for inspecting, good rule of thumb is try to inspect them every 5 years. So do 20% of the system a year. But Bernard wanted to look at the manholes as soon as possible, which is also fine, too. So I'm big into staff utilization. You saw that in both reports. And the municipal workforce can do between 18 and 22 manhole inspections a day. So if you take a look it's good to put 2 people out there for safety reasons. So if you look at those numbers, you can do it in like 140 work days if you continually add 2 people doing it. And it's a good idea to do that, and then you evaluate these manholes, and they have an acronym out there, PACP and MACP, and that is a way that you can consistently, it tells you how to consistently document what you're looking at. So you may look at it one way and not be trained, and I may look at it another, and we have 2 different reports coming in. Well, that training tells you how to report it the same way, and that's why it's important to get certified in both of those criteria. And so what you do is you would rate those manholes, and this one could be looked at every year, this one should be looked at every 2 years, and then another rule of thumb is all the manholes that you initially inspect, 15 to 18% requires some kind of maintenance. That could be from, you know, a frame and cover to more extensive work, and could range from $200 to $3,000. So if you're looking at budgeting to how to take care of your wastewater infrastructure, it's a good tool for that. So looking at them all as soon as possible is also a good management practice, and looking at them over a 5-year period is also acceptable. And it's up to the manager. Bernie, being the manager, wanted to look at it in a year, and I totally supported that.
So is that, out of the 22 that you're saying they can do per day, is that just inspect or inspect and fix?
No, it's inspect and document, properly document,
How
Counselor.
long does it take to go out and to fix those?
It depends. You know, if you got a very competent workforce, you know, you could set a frame and cover in a couple of hours. And if it's more extensive, you could, you know, it may take 4 hours or it may take a day. But the better you document it, the better you document the problem and how long it takes to fix it via a work order system, then you can, you know, determine staff utilization requirements as well as budgeting requirements as well. And I want to talk about the third shift, okay, which is fine. Bernie's a belt and suspenders guy, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, I'm here to tell him what's the most efficient way to do things. You got a safety issue when you have one person on a shift, okay? You're out there at 2 o'clock in the morning alone, so you can put 2 people on the shift, and that would eliminate overtime, or you can institute a call-in procedure. And I have no problem with not eliminating a shift, but, you know, and I did, you know, cite that in the report. I'm fine. And I think he did institute a call-in procedure, and you could put a second person on, and if one person calls in, you don't fill it, you just go to the call-in procedure. So, you know, it's fine. And we did disagree. We had healthy discussions on a daily basis, you know, and this is the net result of it.
So let me ask you, I'm gonna compare Warwick to West Warwick. You said eliminate Warwick's second shift. Why? Warwick's a pretty decent sized facility also. How would you?
Well, they eliminated the third shift.
They eliminated third, but then you have in your recommendation to eliminate the second shift. How? I'm just asking.
Well, in order to eliminate a shift too, you have to get permission from DEM. You have to show that you can properly address any issues at the plant. And, you know, in my opinion, with the electronic monitoring they have, they can. And it may take a little longer, but you can do it. But if the manager doesn't feel comfortable in doing that, that's fine too. You know, it's just, you know, I have to report what I think would be the best management practice of what's available. And they have a pretty good, they call it a SCADA system, which is a system control and data acquisition system, which can remotely tell you what is going on at the plant. And I think in some cases, and they don't like to do this too often, you can remotely control the plant as well. And a lot of the big municipalities, you know, have a full SCADA system where they can remotely monitor and control. I think you can do some. You can. It's limited. So.
So it's not unusual that an auditor and management won't agree on everything, obviously. But Bernie, you said when you brought Charlie in, so, and I apologize since I'm new to it, what was that process? Was it an RFP process? Did we go to bid? How did we actually wind up with the relationship with Charlie?
I actually, from that Warwick, from talking to the Warwick sewer people over there, they had the organizational review done. And that's how I got involved with Charlie, and that's how I brought him in here.
Okay, so there was no RFP process?
No.
Thank you.
Can I ask another question about the manhole system? So
Just so you know, in one of the questions was how long does it take to fix it? We've found several block-ups in the system by doing these inspections, so it has paid off in preventing block-ups that eventually back up into somebody's house.
So if you have 2 people go out to each manhole and they report, they do the reporting, you have different people that come out, they look at the reports, or you look at the reports and you send another crew out there to fix what needs to be fixed while these 2 people can keep going?
It really depends on the work that's going on at the plant. We have other projects, and again, we'd love to do it in a year, but you have other things happening too. You have equipment breaking down. We only have the certain number of mechanics So we have two out in the road, but if we need them, we bring them back. Or if they find something, a lot of times if they'll find like a block up, they will come back, get the Jetta and go out so they may only get 5 that day because they go out and correct the situation.
All right,
It's not a dedicated crew that's all they do.
okay.
Just a couple of things I have. Some people complain the live stream's not working, but Council Messi did confirm it is working. And also, we canceled the sewer commission meeting here tonight because we knew this was going to be a little longer. So the DPW is not going to be only 10, 15 minutes. We're going to be going through it. And then the council meeting will start up immediately following. I just want to make that clear because people were asking.
So is it fair, Bernie, to say the two takeaways for you would be that the cleaning and jetting and getting that done, which may have to go out, have someone else come in and help us with the 30-inch lines, and working with the union to perhaps get some language in there that helps us get our jobs done?
Perfect. I mean, I definitely agree with that, both statements. We need to get onto the collection system, not the side streets, the 8-inch lines or the 6-inch lines, but the 30-inch lines, and that will require a bidding process and get somebody in here to do the work. We definitely have to sit down with the union and get the proper promotions that, people that deserve those jobs should be getting those jobs.
The part that concerns me is the employees down there feel they should be in a different union. And I'll be the first one to admit, I think I've said to 3 or 4 different presidents, it is a unique union because you have your clerks, you have your DPW, you have your sewer department, and you have your police dispatchers. So everybody has their own wants and needs. I mean, how are we going to deal with that in negotiating? And this is a question probably more for Ernie and
I stay out of it.
I was going to say, how are you going to...
It's a union issue. If they want to get out of their union, that's their issue, not mine.
Yeah.
No, I'm not talking about getting out of the union.
Hold on.
I'm just talking about how you make it work.
That's an issue that the union has to commence, or the gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen that work in that particular department have to commence that through the Department of Labor. That's got nothing to do with management, because management can't tell them to be in a particular local or another local. So
No, I understand
that's not even part of collective bargaining. So as far as they wanting to remove themselves from one particular local to put themselves into another one, that goes through the Department of Labor.
I wasn't talking about removing themselves. It's more of how you're going to go, as a group, work together to meet the needs and wants of...
That's up to them. That's really it's non-management, and the town can't even be part of any type of discussion involving what they may or may not do regarding where they stand as far as a particular local or being part of a...
I mean, we could certainly hopefully work on changing some of the wording.
Yes, I think that's what you're saying, David. Yes.
To make it fit all departments. Because, again, something might work for your department, it's not gonna work up here for the clerks, it's not gonna work for DPW, it's not gonna work for the civic center, so. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Bernie? Thank you, Bernie. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, stay up there.
Stay up.
What page we starting on here? I had it highlighted. 30, 27. 27. Recommendation. 27. Who wants to start?
I'd like to go in reverse order. I'd like to actually have Charlie present his, what he did in this report, his findings, and then I'd be happy to come up and tell you what I've changed so far, what I've been able to do, and answer any questions you may have for me when Charlie's done.
Charlie?
Okay. Well, let me start by saying that, I have a similar approach when I do these, regardless of who the municipal entity is. And the biggest challenge when I started this one is I really came into a real dysfunctional organization with no structure whatsoever. The Warwick Sewer Division had structure. The West Warwick Sewer Division had structure. They had a conventional organization chart. They had some good business practices in place and good procedures to deal with them. I didn't find that to be the case here. And everybody was extremely helpful, you know, all the staff members, and I was surprised at how well they did their jobs with very little direction from above, and in some cases, support, you know, from above. And in talking to them, they were excited about kind of making change and getting more organized and so forth. So as I talked with them and looked into what it is they were doing and responsible for, it was amazing that they had to go to 27 cemeteries. I personally went with a landscape professional to all 27, and I went with the foreman, who was operating more like a chief of operations than a foreman, and it was tremendous amount of staff utilization required to get those 27 cemeteries just to ground zero, so you could start, working them on a regular basis. And the union contract is a major issue with both the sewer commission and at the DPW. More so with the DPW. It's, I found that union contract to be really management restrictive, and it limits the professional growth of some people, and language needs to be changed. I mean, the existing language, it contradicts itself. I mean, within the contract itself, it says a probationary period is 3 months, and in the same document it says it's 6 months. That's a major issue in a union contract. And then the job descriptions don't align with some of the language in the contract. And if we take the Civic Center, for example, there's nowhere in the job description is there anything about operating the Zamboni. So I guess that's not a union job if it's not in a union job description. And it needs to be changed. And also with the change is that I made a lot of recommendations in here about reorganizing. You saw a reorganized DPW, a reorganized Civic Center. And with that reorganization, you're going to have to compensate the people accordingly. And I don't get into the money side of it, but if we're looking for them to do the jobs that is required of this DPW, you got to change language and regrade these positions from a compensation standpoint. And a lot of these people have not been compensated for 5 years, and there's a lot of morale issues associated with that. But from a functional standpoint, it needs to be changed. And when I came in, I worked 2 months before Director Picozzi got there, and then when he came in, we immediately started collaborating and communicating on a regular basis, and I could tell he was going to make a tremendous difference. And he started right away in implementing some things that we talked about, which I did include some of it in the report. There was a lot of interactions between Dave and I that are not included in here. And so if I were to prioritize things, I mean, I can go through each one individually, but between these two reports, I spent over 700 hours. I didn't get paid for 700 hours, and I'm not complaining about that. But for me to come here and talk and answer questions in the designated time, it's really going to be difficult. But I will say that I don't think you have a staff level issue here. You have a staff utilization issue, which Dave is working on to correct. I think there's no really great best management practices here. Overtime, in some cases, is being worked, and it's not pre-approved. It's approved because somebody signs a payroll, but it's not pre-approved, and it's tough to determine why the overtime was worked in some cases. And work documentation was very poor. So, for example, if I were to say how many potholes were fixed in a year, and what was the total time for them in staff utilization time to fix them, and what was the cost, that doesn't exist. So when you're looking at what you have to do from a staff utilization standpoint and from a budgeting standpoint, if you had to repair 300 manholes and it took 1,800 man hours and it cost so much money, it helps you going into the next year to determine how to utilize your staff. There was common themes that came out of the interviews. One of them, the money was, a big issue, and the staff feels they were promised things, and the promises weren't lived up to.
Promised things by who?
That there were going to be, there was a wage reopener or something, and that it never really materialized. I don't know that to be the case. I'm just telling you what they told me, that they felt the council was too involved in their day-to-day business, and it impacted their productivity, because the way they were managed prior to Councilor Picozzi is they would have to drop everything, and they get pulled off a job, and they'd have to go do whatever the councilor, complained about. And yard waste was a big issue. Yard waste was put out one day knowing that they couldn't get to it all in one day. They couldn't get to it in 2 days, or 3 and 4. And that resulted in all the sitting councilors getting calls from their constituents about, why is the yard waste out in front of my yard, again and again and again. And I made a recommendation that you break it up and put yard waste out, on a daily basis, and you can get to it with the crew. And Dave has attacked it a little differently, but with the same result. And I think all you sitting councilors have got many less complaints about yard waste, because the staff is getting to them quicker and more efficiently. And so.
Can we back up a minute?
Yep.
Can you elaborate a little bit more, or define it, where you're saying we're getting too involved? In the day-to-day, it's stopping.
I'm just reiterating what they said. They said a lot of complaints come in, and they'd go to multiple people. And then the way they were handled,
Well,
like,
I'm not following you.
it might go to the assistant director, it might go to the, when the director was here, the assistant director, or it may go to the foreman. And the way they were handled is, they would pull somebody off, and go run and do the job. Whatever it is, respond to the complaint.
So you're saying that town council got priority over anybody else?
Yeah, and the town council is very important. You represent the people, and you gotta get the voice out there.
Not more important than the people, just saying, yes.
But it needs to be managed the right way, and Director Picozzi is very big about that. They're all focused they're all coming through him, and he vets them,
Should be.
and he prioritizes them, and, he gets them done. It wasn't always that way.
So I want to interrupt on that one, because I know personally, I send an email, or I do make a phone call. I'll ask, hey, we passed an ordinance for no parking signs. When do you plan on having them up? I don't say pull them off a job and go put them up.
I'm not saying you do,
But
Counselor.
again, I don't know who's making that decision to pull them off a job to go put them up. I mean, I appreciate it's getting done,
Right.
but and maybe, I don't know if they're talking about one specific council person or multiple council people. Are they lumping us all in? I don't know. But I can tell you now that me as a councilman, if I call them, it's not something I need done right away. I just ask, and I ask, the only thing I ask for is, when I send a request, just send it back to me when it's done, so I can let my constituents know, or whoever called me, know that it's done. For instance, parking signs the other day.
Or an ETA of how
Just-
long
that's
it's,
all
or
I
an
ask
ETA of
for,
how long,
yeah.
so we know, yeah, that's,
So if there was a council person, or is a council person, who's demanding stuff to get dropped, that honestly does need to stop, and that needs to come from the department head and say, we're gonna get to it on such and such a day, so on. I mean, potholes, I know I've called up about potholes. We put a cone in them, and they go out on Fridays, they fill the potholes. I'm fine with it, as long as I have an idea and it's safe, and it's not gonna cost us a ton of
well, yeah,
money.
at least that way, if a constituent reaches out to us and they follow back up in a few days and they say, what's going on with this, we can at least say, all right, it's gonna be taken care of next week, at least we can have some kind of an estimate of when it's gonna be done. I don't think I've ever been like this need, like,
I can sum this up in one word, to be honest. It's communication.
yeah.
And the communication, I mean, we do get the calls, and sometimes more so than other times. And sometimes, I'll be honest, things are a priority. When you go out, you're driving around, you see a stop sign that's down. It should be put up, I would say ASAP. But that's something where, and I don't sit by my email all day, but that's something I'll call, talk to the director. If I can't get the director, I'll call DPW, let them know the issue, and that's it. It's in your hands at that point. Other times, I know I've sent lists, here you go, here's some items I'd like to discuss with you. Again, not done ASAP, when you get a chance, this is before you, Director Cozy, but it got taken care of. And it wasn't right away, it didn't need to be right away. But it's about communication. And this is, I think there's a good procedure now. If there's an issue involving DPW, it goes, and I've asked Ernie, when Ernie first started, how do you want to handle this? Should everything go to you? And he mentioned if it's an issue with DPW, goes to him. An issue with the planner, go to the planner. And if we feel he needs to be involved, then to CC Ernie.
And
Is
that's,
this the procedure that you want, Ernie, as the manager? Because if
Yes.
not, then tell us.
No, when a council member gets complaints from citizens or sees something that needs to be addressed, if it's a public works issue, rather than going through my office and then I have
Right, I
to,
know, yeah.
my office contacts the director, those interactions directly to the director are fine with me. The director can know and prioritize what needs to be done, when and how. He's got tremendous experience, and he does that. And if it's something that I need to know about, then, he will let me know. And in many, many cases with the council, if there's an email going to a director, I'm just about always copied on it. So I always know what's going on. With the directors, I know if something's going on, it's important. But when you have the concerns from your residents and your wards, I find it quicker, easier, and get it addressed more appropriately if it goes right to the director. And then at that point, the director, department head can determine how critical it is and when it can be done. If it's something that goes on a list that gets to, then they will say, okay, we can get to it here, and there's feedback. If it's something critical as a stop sign, has to be done immediately. So the process that we have saves a lot of time and removes a step that could delay in resolving issues. So as you indicated, if a member of council has an issue, whether constituent or something you see, if it goes to the appropriate director, they'll take care of it. If the director at that point feels I need to be involved or notified, he will do that. Most of the issues are just taken care of just as a resident would call a director. So I think that works very efficiently, and it gets the issues resolved in a timely fashion.
And it sounds like that's what's happening now, Dave.
Yes.
And things are going to Dave. I would suggest that just if a town council person calls, doesn't automatically go to the top of the list.
in the councilors are not demanding. In one of the first conversations I had with Dave, when he started, I think September 4th or whatever it was, is I said, they handle these council complaints every day, it's a fire drill, Dave. And the first thing he said is, that's gonna stop. They're all coming through me, and they stopped. Okay, and he vets them, he prioritizes them. There's less complaints in a bunch of different business practice areas because of some of the things he's implemented, and I think you councilors have probably recognized that. I'm sure you get much fewer complaints on yard waste than some of the other things, because he has a system in place to get to it right away. So I wasn't accusing you, councilors, of telling them to, but that's how they were
They're
handled.
in the crowd. I want to make sure that they understand that, that we're not demanding them to get out there and do it. I want them to understand that, when we send a request over, all we want is an answer.
And there are some days where we'll get like random complaints and we'll send a list, like a long list, but that's not, I don't do it to be demanding, but if I don't make the list and send it, then it's never gonna get over there. So it's not necessarily something that everything needs to be done in the next day. But if I get 5 complaints in a day about totally unrelated things,
Again, I think part of it has been, or from what has been said to Charlie, is that, again, it goes back to administration and management. Again, how was it managed before? Now, however it was, now it's being managed in a way where everything's funneled into one person who can make those decisions.
So, I'll quickly go through some of these recommendations. Right away, there was no mission statement here. There was no mission statement. And every DPW has a mission statement, so I recommended one. And by having one, it lets the employees know, what their roles are and what their end goal is and what, with their job. There was the job descriptions are terrible. They really they do not accurately reflect what it is they're doing. And some of them were recently done, and I pointed some of the deficiencies out, in this report. I mean, the DPW director is also the tree warden. You need a separate tree warden. The assistant superintendent is responsible for the civic center. There's not one thing in the civic center, in his job description, that says he has any involvement with the civic center. And 20% of his salary comes out of the civic center, and there's not one item in the job description. The union contract language, I mean, we said enough about that. There's things that have to be changed. There has to be a lot of clarity, particularly with regard to the driver. And I made the driver job description, I don't think there's any place for the driver job description. And I think it should be a DPW worker, utility worker, as I recommended. That's more responsibility. It's got to be factored in, to the salary structure during the negotiating period. Something to think about. I don't know the process. Where I come from, we could amend an existing position. I don't know if that's a doable thing here.
That has been discussed in past contract negotiations numerous times.
Amending positions?
No, that driver position, driver/laborer. That's been discussed in every contract negotiation that I have. It's never been agreed upon.
Are you talking about the 50 cents per hour?
Well, as a driver, driver is no longer driver, it'd be driver/laborer, so they wouldn't just be driving. That's been tried to be negotiated in the last two contracts that I can recall.
I think the DPW utility worker, Dave and I worked on this extensively. He actually gave it the title. We worked on the responsibilities. I think it's a sound description, and I think it fully captures what needs to be done. And is that part of a member of the work crew? There's no work crew structure. I showed you the existing org chart, and I gave you a proposed reorganization that gave well-defined work crews with a working foreman, with leadership at the top, with the assistant. I never liked assistants. Dave's not a big fan of assistants, so we were talking about making it a DPW supervisor. But the existing foreman is not really a foreman. He's more like a chief of operations, and it's needed. And the chief of operations could be a union position or a non-union position, whatever you decide. These are only recommendations of how to make the organization more functional, more structured, more productive. There was the work is poorly documented. There was no work order system. Things were, notes were taken, and the person responsible for putting information together has done a great job of, trying to organize poorly documented information. The new director has set up I call it a rudimentary work order system, because it's all pretty much done by hand. There are computerized systems out there that you can use that will actually generate work orders for you electronically. Not really as technically intensive as I'm making it sound, but there are, a variety of them. The union language, I mean, the way it's set up, it cuts the workday to 6.9 hours. And, coming back for breaks and lunch further cuts into it. And, it's something that, needs to be discussed. I know it's high on Dave's list, and it needs to be discussed, and it needs to be kind of folded in and balanced off by, restructuring the salary structures of some of these jobs.
So from an 8-hour day to a 6.9 hour, where does the 1.1 go?
Well, they get, the field staff gets a paid lunch. Now, I have a lot of experience with DPWs and field staff. Operation staff gets a paid lunch because they have to stay there. Field staff, they work an 8.5-hour day and get a 30-minute unpaid lunch. And they get 20-minute breaks instead of 15-minute breaks. So in their lunch break, in their 2 15-minute breaks, which are, common everywhere. So you're looking at a 6.9-hour, day if you lop off that 70 minutes. And, then coming back, because the union contract says you have to provide a rest area, you're further reducing that wrench time by the travel time to go back and forth. And, consideration should be given to, changing that. And
What do you mean rest area? Sorry, I'm just not.
Well, they come back to they come back to the yard because they have the rest area for their break. So,
Instead of resting in place, like wherever you are, you take a break, they go back to DPW.
Come back, wash their hands, clean up, eat, do whatever.
All right.
so the cemeteries, I believe there's like 69 cemeteries, 27 of them are the responsibility of the DPW yard. I've highlighted those and given some details on those, and yes,
Charlie, I don't mean to interrupt, but one of the things that I noted was, it's not clear as to how we became responsible for 27 out of the 69. How was that determined? I mean, is it because they're historic?
I have no idea, and I was presented with all the responsibilities of DPW, and 27 out of the 68 or 69 cemeteries in the city were on the list, and were visited by my subcontractor and me, and the staff utilization in there is what that professional landscape person, what he would charge to get that to a point where you could maintain it. It would look great, and you can maintain it every 2 weeks, and it would still look, it would still look good. And, I try to highlight that in the report.
Do we
But-
have the capability to take on 27 cemeteries every other week to maintain?
That's a question for Dave, and, I mean, you got limited equipment, as well. The equipment's pretty beat up, and so I don't know, Dave, you wanna?
Yeah, when you're done, I'll speak to him.
So, then, I looked into the budget, and there were 4 mechanic positions listed in the budget, and there's only 3. There's a lead mechanic and 3 mechanics, and there's 4 in the budget. Now, nobody requested a mechanic's position, but the lead mechanic said, when I brought this up to his attention, they said it would be a good idea. There is an assistant mechanic job description hanging around out there. So he said it would be great for me to have an assistant mechanic position, because I can use him as a gopher, and I don't have to take a mechanic off the line to go get parts, go pick up a vehicle somewhere. And it sounds like a good idea, and there's a 4th mechanic position in the budget. I don't know how it got there. I don't know how it got approved. I don't know why it got approved, but it does exist, and it's listed, the dollars are in the budget, for the 4th mechanic.
So there's a vacancy in the budget, is what you're saying?
I
There's
imagine.
a vacant position in the budget.
Pretty much is what you're saying.
So, it's not a council, that's not at a council level, that's more of, if we got involved in that, that's more micromanaging, correct?
Well, it is, but there's a 4th position out there that,
So I guess my question is, we have a human resource director.
I'm only pointing it out,
How long has this
Counselor.
been going on for? The budget got approved in May, implemented in July. So, was this prior to this budget?
It was the budget that was approved for fiscal 2019.
So if we have a vacant position, and people are complaining that they have too much work, so why the hell aren't we filling the position? To me, it doesn't make any sense.
And again, it's not, the council's job is to pass the budget. It's the
Correct.
department head and manager's job to fulfill these positions and whatever else we approve. That has not, I mean, for instance, I know faces here in the crowd tonight. I couldn't tell you what any one of them do, because that's not my job.
Correct.
I know
Correct.
some are drivers, I know some are laborers.
Correct.
But again, on any given day, like I know who the mason is now, just because I asked who the mason was, all right? But again,
That's
we
not our
don't do
role.
the day-to-day
That's not our role.
operations, and nor should we. So I wanna make that clear, that that's a department head, town manager, HR role, not a town council role.
So can I just ask one question though, Charlie? So you're
Yes.
saying we have, which I understood, we have 4 mechanics, but you're saying only 3 are filled?
No,
No.
you only have 3 mechanics
Yep.
and a lead mechanic.
Oh, okay.
In the
Because
budget-
when you provided us pictures of the equipment,
Right.
you provided us with 4 sets.
Correct.
So one is the lead mechanic, and then
Yes.
three, okay, total of
So
one position.
the organizational structure here is a lead mechanic and 3 mechanics. Somehow there's a 4th position that got in there
Okay.
and was budgeted. And it can be utilized, but it would be an assistant mechanic. And, you know, Director Picozzi wants to get in here at this point. And one other thing I want to say with regard to DPW highway, I call them divisions. I don't think there's a parks department in this, I think they're all divisions. I know the union thinks differently, but I don't. And I refer to them as divisions, all under the DPW department. The other thing that I thought was kind of a real issue to bring out is that the roof leaks in the garage, and it leaks pretty badly. And, you know, there's like 150 vehicles there that are repaired and repaired very well.
So how long is the roof leaked?
I have no idea.
And did I also read there's no alarm system of any type?
I don't know that, Counselor, but all of these mechanics utilize their own tools, and I wanted to point that out in the picture. Collectively, they say it's, you know, well over $600,000. Specialized tools are provided by the town, but they utilize their own tools, you know, in there. And I don't see
My other question is,
anywhere,
Isn't that common, though, mechanics that come with their own tools?
I guess it is common,
Okay.
but it's
We should
not.
at least be securing it for them.
Yeah, I don't know that it is, and I wanted to point out that you could have a liability there. Oh, it is, okay.
Is it alarm? Yes.
So, and at this point, before we get into
Well,
anything.
before Dave
Yeah.
jumps up,
Yeah.
I just want to point out a couple of things. Back in 2008, 2010, the Historic Cemetery Society broke up. They went, and Councilwoman Gustafson was here at the time. So we're going back to 08, 10, somewhere in that vicinity. And that group decided, and I'm not sure if it was council decision or they just didn't have the help to get it done. They broke up. That's where the cemeteries got dumped on the town itself. I know there's been some interest.
Of restarting, I've heard.
That people have come up to Councilman Messier and I, looking to restart that organization again. So maybe that's something we can look
Out
at.
of the hands of DPW.
And I'm still confused about this mechanic position, because it says 4 in the budget, there's a lead and 3 mechanics. Is there really a vacancy is the question? You know, and I'm getting conflicted messages here, so, and I'm getting messages from
Well,
all over the place.
a lot of questions come up with that. If there is a vacancy, and we've gone this long without it, do we need it? If there is no vacancy, why is there a discrepancy? And who would know? There's gotta be some history.
I want to be clear on
Previous
this.
director messaged me and said there's no vacancy.
I want to be clear on
Get in
this.
touch with him.
I was presented with a fiscal 19 budget approved by the council. There was a lead mechanic approved for X number of dollars and 4 mechanics approved for X number of dollars. It's the document that came out of this council and was given to me for review as part of this report. Whether that means there's a vacancy or not, I can't answer that.
If I can just add, without jumping to conclusions, if there was a vacancy and it had not been filled, don't you think the union would have grieved it by now? So without coming to a conclusion as a result of what information Charlie's been provided with, find out from the manager to determine whether or not there's in fact a vacancy, which there's probably not at this point in time.
It's at the bottom of the write-up, Counselor, for that
No,
highway.
I'm not looking, I'm getting the budget, my
Oh, okay.
budget. Go ahead, Dave.
Let me just start off with what I observed when I came here 4.5 months ago, and for the new councilor's sake. I worked in the city of Warwick for 32 years. I started off as a laborer. I went through several jobs, highway chief for years, and I finished off my career as the director of public works for 13 years and the mayor's chief of staff for 2. What I found when I came here to this Department of Public Works, much smaller than what I was used to, what I found was it was very poorly managed in the way they went about their daily jobs. What I also found was that it was very poorly equipped to go out and complete those jobs. As far as equipment goes,
You mean equipped, you mean trained?
no, equipped with equipment. I was very surprised at the lack of equipment in this Department of Public Works and how the ability to go out and do the simplest task is just not there. I look at some of the work that needs to be done. We don't clean our own drains. We do not inspect our own drains. We do repair them. Very limited on what we can do because of the equipment we have. Just a couple of weeks ago, they were out trying to pave around manhole covers that are raised, and they're ruining their plows on them. We had to go rent the compressor. You know, for a public works department that doesn't own their own compressor and jackhammer is just outrageous, in my opinion. Some of the other equipment you're going to see later on tonight, I'm going to come before this council. I'm renting a flail cutter to go out and address this bike path that hasn't been cut in a long, long time. You know, we're renting a piece of equipment. You know, my prior job, I owned 2 of them. I know we had more money in that town, but
We've talked about
at
that.
some point, we need to make these investments in this town. To rely on private contractors to come in here and do some of this work, it's a lot of money we're spending that you could do in-house with an investment, of course. The way I approached this job was when I went in, the first thing I needed to do was square away the administration in that department and then start working out from there. And what I found is some of the ways we were going about doing our job and documentation, they just didn't exist. For instance, I called in my staff and I asked them to show me what was done, and I just picked Ward 4 in the last 6 months. And they just looked at me with a blank look on their face. They couldn't show me anything that's been done in Ward 4 in the last 6 months. No documentation, no work orders. When you call in, a work order should be produced. Councilman so-and-so called on this day, boom, what's the job? And then there's a spot on that job for when the job was completed. We had no such system in there. We do have that system in place today. It's just a very simple system where we can track everything we're doing. And again, it's not only to make sure the department runs more efficient. Now you have a record of what was done. Councilman Licciardi says, hey, you never did that job for me. Yes, I did. It's right here. It was completed. I went out, I checked it, signed off on it. That's the way we're doing things today. Purchasing. We have a couple of Home Depot cards, and the employees were just taking those Home Depot cards and going to make purchases for whatever they needed. And when I started to look into that, I wanted to see who was approving this, because I was asked to approve requisitions after the fact. After they went out and spent the money, I was asked to approve this, and I was very uncomfortable with that. I started a rec system. When they come in now, they need to come to me or my assistant with the rec on what they need to purchase. We need to sign it. Then they're allowed to take that card, make the purchase, come back, staple the receipt to that, then it goes down to finance for payment. None of that existed there. You know, it was crazy. I never saw anything like it.
That opens us up to a lot of
Of course it does.
a lot of questions.
Of course it does. And again, Councilman, I'm not looking back, I'm looking forward. That's what I'm trying to do, okay? I'm looking forward. I don't want to look back. Work scheduling, Charlie was right. The yard waste sitting out there for a week. So now I start to look into that. Why is the yard waste sitting out there for a week? And I had this conversation with the council president one time. Some days they'd send a truck out, 2 trucks, some days no trucks, depending on what else they were doing. It wasn't a priority. We prioritize that. We're usually getting it done in a couple of days now, except for the heavy season. Of course, it's going to take longer to do. So it's just a matter of prioritizing our work. I can tell you the staff I have in the office is fantastic. I've been getting great cooperation from them. And we're starting to change things around. We're moving in the right direction, no question about it. We've equipped our trucks with the radios. Thank you for approving that. That's going to make us a lot more efficient, especially in a snowstorm. Easy to keep track of everybody. They can call us with problems that need to be addressed. That's going to work out fantastic. The guys are happy with it. Another thing we didn't keep track of is materials we were using. I was watching us go out and we're doing jobs, and I asked, for instance, on the drainage crew, how do you know how many bags of cement you used on that job? Where's your daily sheet? I like to see that. Who did the job? What materials were used? How are you keeping inventory? How are you keeping stock? We weren't. We had no inventory. We had no inventory of what we had there. We had no inventory of the tools that we owned, along with serial numbers. In case something got stolen, we had the serial number. We had none of that. We're doing that now. So these are the kind of things we're working on, and I'm getting a lot of cooperation. It's working well. I have to say that, and it's no secret I have problems with the union contract. Okay, by the time we get our crews on the road, by the time we complete our breaks, by the time we're back in the yard early to have our afternoon break, not a lot of time for work as far as I'm concerned, not what I'm used to. And it's no secret to my employees, I've talked to them about it, and they know it, okay? And I'll just go over these clauses in the contract, and I know they've been negotiated. I think they need to be negotiated again. For instance, and again, I was a union president in Warwick. I was a shop steward, executive board member, and a president. I wrote a lot of the contract that's in our neighboring city. I've never seen language like this in a union contract before. I've been around them for 30 years. It reads, the employer shall have proper facilities for relaxation during rest periods. Rest periods shall be granted for 20 minutes during each part of the day. What that means is if we're on the other side of town working on a cemetery, we pack the job up, we head to the town yard, take 20 minutes, head back to the job. I've been watching these breaks. They're not 20 minutes, I can tell you.
So when does it?
They're 45
When
minutes.
does
They're
it
an
begin?
hour. They're an hour change. You know,
So
it's,
when would the break begin? Like when you leave the job or when you get back to the?
I'll tell you, and I'll make no
DPW.
secret here. I'll be negotiating this next contract. The proper way, everywhere I've ever seen, private contractors, cities and towns, it's a 15-minute rest period. You stop on your job. What we do, we stop on the job, we send the guy, go grab coffees for everyone. Take your break, continue your job. By the time you pack up a job, head back to the yard, have your 20-minute break, head back to the job again, it's time to go on your lunch break or your next break. It's crazy. They know I don't like it. It's one of my things I don't like. It's not productive. You'll never be productive as long as that's in there. So that's something we need to change. And then there's one other clause, and again, it's no secret. I've talked to these guys. In this day and age, to have a driver's position where you give them the option, and you'll pay them 50 cents an hour for the option to get out and perform laborer's work, it's just outrageous. This town cannot afford to have 6 people in your small workforce be able to drive out to a job and just remain in the truck and let the laborers do the work. Now, I'm not saying they all do that. I can tell you I get good cooperation out of 90% of them, maybe 99% of them. But the option's there if they don't want to do that, and that makes me very uncomfortable as a manager. You know, where I come from, everybody works. We don't just sit around. We never will we sit around and watch our union brothers or sisters working, and we're going to sit there and watch them. Now, I'm in a debate about this right now, because what it says is when we give them this option and we give them the 50 cents, it's to assist the laborer in his day-to-day operation. I'm in a little debate now because I believe that is, you get right in the hole and you help that laborer with a shovel in your hand or a rake or whatever it is you need to do to complete that job. Their interpretation is, oh no, I'm going to hand them the shovel. That's assisting the laborer. No, I don't think so. That's not the way I see it, and that's one of the things I'm contending with now. I can tell you there's a lot of things that need to change to make us very efficient. Those are the 2 major where I think this department could be a lot more efficient. And again, I have some great people there. I can tell you, again, 99% of them go along with the program. I can tell you the morale in that place is horrible. And, you know, and again, like I know Charlie interviewed everybody, and I've been talking to these people too, because now, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm with them. I'm one of them. There's a lot of animosity. They think they've been wronged by this town. Some of the things I have seen, they may be right. A lot of people do not trust, you know, and Ernie's my friend. They don't trust the town manager's office. They don't trust the city council. These are things that they've told me. I have people in that department, one in particular. She is so talented, it's unbelievable. The knowledge that that woman has, I don't believe she should be sitting in the Public Works Department. She ought to be in this town hall somewhere as a management employee, really helping this town get ahead. But she's afraid to leave the union because she's afraid of her job. That's a shame. It's a shame. I've never seen anything like that. This is a woman who's an asset to this town, big-time asset. She will not leave that union position no matter what. And I've told her that. You need to be in town hall. You need to be in the manager's office or in HR. But that's the mentality down there. They think they've been wronged. I'm trying to work past that. I'm trying to tell them it's in the past, there's nothing I can do about it, there's nothing this council can do about it. We need to move forward.
The thing, I know there's a lot of animosity, and I just came in 2 years ago, along with Councilman Messier, Councilman D'Amico, and Councilwoman Williamson, brand new, so
Yeah.
I don't know the history, like Dave, I'm
The
sure
last
you know a lot.
contract was the biggest.
But I understand about the animosity, but we're now put in a position where we're gonna be the recipients of that animosity. So, is it all about money?
Pretty much.
A major part is about money, absolutely. Absolutely, it's about money.
I can tell you right now, and I think I've shared this with the council, down in Phoenix Square, talking to a couple of town workers. They're working 2-3 jobs to make ends meet. They're
All of
working
them.
third shift and yet you go over and got friends who work in Warwick, and Dave, you could speak for Warwick. The clerks are making $2, $3, $4 more an hour than our clerks here. DPW is making a few more dollars an hour. Now,
Quite a few more.
now, Dave and I have had this conversation, obviously negotiation's gonna happen, but, we've gone back and forth with this, and we've said numerous times that, as Dave is saying, if you're taking an hour, 20-minute break, and in the end, if you take that salary times hours worked, it's a different method.
Correct.
But if you take your hours worked and increase that, obviously, you're gonna probably increase the salary also.
Absolutely.
Dave has shared that formula with me, and I've shared it back with him, and I agree with him on that. And, if you're got an employee who's working 8 hours and giving you 4.5 hours of productivity, then that's what you gotta look at. But if you got an employee who's giving you 7.5 hours productivity out of an 8-hour day, then you gotta look at their compensation.
And I just to
And that's something that needs to be negotiated.
Mr. President, this seems to be getting a little upstream, and you're getting in more into collective bargaining and what may occur.
Okay.
We're just,
Just letting you know that you're here for an efficiency evaluation by Mr. Lombardi and the DPW. It seems that you're getting a little upstream regarding collective bargaining, what may or may not occur with negotiations into the future. So if you just get it back
I
to
would
the
agree with that.
efficiency.
So, go ahead,
I'm going by
Councilman.
what's in the report as
Sure.
far as morale.
Yep,
And I just want to be clear. What you're saying is, you said it's mostly about money. Just for instance, I'm thinking hypothetically now.
Mm-hmm.
Say tomorrow everybody got a $3 an hour raise. Everything else would go away, everybody be happy,
Well,
all the morale would change.
again,
Is that what
I
you're
think I
saying?
would agree with council that we're starting to negotiate a contract here.
Right.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying,
So-
we're talking about morale here, and
Yeah.
you're saying that's the issue.
Basically,
of
let
morale.
me try and put it this way.
If I may,
Sure.
you just asked the issue if money would take care of it, and he said yes. But if you start getting into some of the,
Right.
the nooks and crannies of this, you're collective bargaining in front of everybody, and they're gonna file a grievance for what's happening tonight.
I think I
Just
could
trying to
explain it, I
figure
think
out
I can
here how
explain
we
it this way.
How we can
Uh,
break that.
Well, I've explained
The
so far what
animosity.
I found when I was there, and I'm trying to go over, and I think I have gone over what we've been able to accomplish so far with the help of the employees, okay? I can tell you the department is in a lot better place today than where it was when I started here 4.5 months ago. Not all because of me, because I've gotten cooperation from this department. It needs to go further, and I would agree with the counselor, that's something we're going to have to address in contract negotiations. Needs to go further. I'll tell you something we don't have to address in contract negotiations. We need to better equip this department so that they can go out and perform their duties. I can give them all the money in the world. They can give me back everything I need. We don't have the equipment to get these jobs done. We're just spinning our wheels. They need to be better equipped than what they are today. There's no question about that, so.
So I think the two issues, then I asked Bernie the same thing. So you're saying money and trust are the two issues that are causing.
They're very
the
big
problem.
issues, Councilwoman, very big issues. And well, I'll just leave it at that at Public Works. Charlie has a lot to talk about with the Civic Center. I can tell you, I've been strictly working on Public Works because I'm trying to get a handle around that. I haven't scratched the surface at the Civic Center yet. That'll be next on my agenda. Charlie has been up there. We have discussed what's going on, but as far as getting up there and getting into the weeds, I haven't been able to get there yet. So just being right up front with you.
Thanks, Dave.
So, Counselor, money's an issue with everything. It will help, the guys want to do the right thing, and it will help to get the right thing done. okay? The equipment, as Dave said, in this report, take a look at some of the vehicles that are going out. I've never seen over 100,000 miles. They're barely safety, and it's a credit to the mechanics that they're keeping the things on the road.
So just to interrupt, so I'm going through that list, and it looks like those are years before them. Like, so in other words, we have like a 1971
Yeah.
forklift. Then there's a trailer. Is that the model number or the year 1900?
There's probably no
I think that was in the budget. I took that right from the budget. It must be a typo. But you gotta pay attention to the trucks and what these guys are using to do their jobs. And some of them, you know, they have debates over what equipment they're gonna use when they get scheduled to go out, because some is better than others. And there needs to be a plan in place to replace them. And, you know, I highlighted the ones that the lead mechanic feels should be the ones that are first addressed, and you should come up with some sort of a capital replacement program.
We have
You know,
that at our fire department, and I think it's in the police department. I think it's a great program.
Right.
You know, I fully support that program, and it should be done here at DPW. But
Well,
it's not presented to us.
I just presented it.
Thank you. But it hasn't been presented before, though. So again, where,
I think we're all.
do you want us to micromanage?
Let me clarify that. Every department head, wait a minute, every department head from Paul Thomas to Dave Lombardi to now Dave Pacozzi has stood up here, and Fred Gill stood up here every single budget, and I'm not blaming everybody here. They stood up here in every single budget and asked and asked and asked for these supplies and materials and whatever else it may be. It's been denied every single year. Maybe a truck, maybe this, maybe that, one at a time. And yes, and unfortunately, they come up with a giant list, and it ends up being so expensive that we decide to cut this. Even last budget, everybody here except for Mary Beth, cut on Freddie. Freddie came up with the brush mower, this mower, that, the cameras,
Yeah.
the camera system. He was told the cameras use sewer departments. Well, sewer departments is broken, and I was with Freddie numerous times, and the former Mason down at jobs where they needed a camera right then and there to see if there was a collapse. You couldn't wait. They had to call down sewer department. Oh, we're using it, or we can't get anybody out there till tomorrow. Well, they sat here last budget, and we denied it. So to sit here and say that it's never been presented to us,
Well,
That's
I'm
wrong.
thinking too with the fire department, I'm using the fire as an example because I know a little bit more about that. But they generate revenue to come in for that replacement vehicle, correct?
they do through the ambulance.
Right. Is there a way that DPW can generate any type of revenue to go against that?
Absolutely, there's nothing. They don't charge to go out and plow a street. They don't go out. The only thing they do
Alright,
is
so it's no.
to pick up mattresses,
So it's
but we
no.
end up
Alright.
paying that out to the recycling centers.
All right.
So I think we all agree, we understand that needs to be addressed.
Now, you know, with regard to the Civic Center, I did a lot of work and worked with the manager there, the person who's in a management position, who I think that person's doing a great job and kind of assumed the responsibility of keeping that going. I think she's a great ambassador for the city, but there wasn't a lot of information that I could verify there, which is why I didn't get too detailed in this report. I mean, the counselor, I mean, the management person is on a commission, which I never heard of a commission before. They are bringing in a lot more advertising revenue and rental revenue. I think it amounts to, you know, when I cut it off on this review, it was something like $133,000. And, you know, she gets a salary and she gets a commission on that. And the commission is, on some of it, it's a one-time deal. On the rentals, it would be going on. And I think you should just readjust the salary there and get rid of the commission and readjust the salary. I've worked in municipalities across the United States when I was in a national consultant firm, and I worked with 43 communities when I was running the MWRA wastewater transport department, and I helped all, I've never heard of a municipal person being on a commission.
So Charlie, let me go back, and I know a history of that. Previous to that position, before the rink was privatized to 788 Sports, there was an individual that was up there making $70-something thousand. I think it was $72,000 or $78,000. And I thought I saw Elaine here. She could probably tell you because she knew who it was. In that individual, we cut the position, and to save that $70-something thousand. Now, the former town manager, Fred Presley, came about, and 788 Sports went bankrupt, left the town sitting on that. And I said, we should not hire a person, because that person was making 70-something thousand, almost 80 with longevity and whatever else. Didn't have any incentive, nothing. I don't have to rent it out. I'm still getting $80,000 a year, either way. So the position that was created for the marketing director at the time was to create a person at, I think, a $40,000 a year salary and the commission. Now, that was a negotiation between the town manager and who was hired. And so the incentive was to sell, and you would get a commission. Now, personally, it's on the first year of that individual. So if a company comes in like the circus, they were getting a commission the very first year, but the circus came back next year, they weren't getting a commission. So I want to make that clear. Like everybody, I hear and I read all over the place, like this person's getting 20% commission and making six figures. That's
Not
nowhere
true.
near true. It's
Correct.
still under $70,000, ladies and gentlemen. So when you sit there and hear 20% commission, it's not that. Take a look at the payroll. So if you want to bump it up to what, I have no problem with that. I looked at your structure here. I personally think that title should be changed. Her title should be changed, so she'd have management rights up there. That's just my opinion. That's up to the council and the manager. Again, if you want to do something like that, that's fine, but that was done by the previous town manager, only to, and the commission portion was for incentive to sell, to make that person stay on their feet and not come complacent up there and say, oh, I'm getting 80,000 no matter what. And that's what was happening. And not from the previous individual, but it has happened. There was no incentive. We were paying other people $6,000 a year, $5,000 a year to run that place. They didn't have any incentive to, they were just collecting $5,000. They had no incentive to make sure we're booked, we're sold out. There was months and months that place was vacant. And so that's how that commission salary came into play. So that's, I just want to give you that information for clarification.
Well, yeah, I still have never heard of a municipality paying a, employee a commission, and that's up to you, Counselor and Council and the town manager. I just, that was one of my findings. I wanted to get it out there. I met extensively with the coordinator, the marketing and event coordinator, and we worked collaboratively. And I really feel it was my understanding of this body's expectation is you want to operate that as and make a profit. There's some, you want to have a positive revenue stream. And this young lady that's there worked hard to generate that. I'm really confused about a lot of the other financial sides of that, but I saw what that she has done and is work to promote. It's got to be reorganized, and I really don't think it should be with union positions. I think if you're going to run it like a business, you got to run it like a business, and you have to have a management structure similar to what I put in the report. And it can be modified, and you should have as-needed part-time people. They can be in a union structure that you hire as needed in there. But, I mean, to get that going, you got to promote that at a management level, have people come in there and sell it, and there should be a director of it, or the whatever I put in there. I don't have the report in front of me. And I think that structure is a sound structure. It's a $2.5 million complex. That's what it was appraised at in 2015. $2.5 million it was appraised at. And it's a tremendous, tremendous asset to the city. And if it's run properly, it really does tremendous things for the town. And it does need to be reorganized, and it does need to be run like a business, and that means it needs to have a management structure similar to what I'm recommending in that report.
My issue currently with that is we're working off a verbal contract. With whatever that contract is, nobody seems to find anything, and it's not just this, but nobody can find any history or anything in writing. We're going back to a previous manager who hasn't been here for, we're going on 2 years, and we've never fixed it. So whatever it may be, whatever this verbal contract was said, there's nothing in writing. I mean, I've asked many times, and it seems like it's a mystery all the time. You know, I'm just looking for clarification.
It was verbal, and the person in the position has agreed it's been verbal. I don't know, where
You
it's.
said it right there, I don't know.
I don't know where the
That's issue.
funding is coming from, what line item, that's not for me. I just think that the position is doing a good job, has assumed the responsibility, to take management responsibility for it, and has done so in a way to at least generate a positive revenue stream to this point. There's money that's being transferred in on a regular basis, which I don't really understand why, it's being transferred in. There's I got a document that I looked at. I reviewed a ton of documents. I got a list here, and I didn't get into them in detail, and I didn't really have a chance to go over them all with Fred. I mean, there's documents, there's 3 pages of them, in here. And that's why I recommended that this body may want to look into just what is the status of the Civic Center, and, both from a physical standpoint and from a financial standpoint. I saw something that the council approved $400,000 for a sprinkler system in fiscal year 2013, and
That went all the way back to 2006.
well, there was a resolution in 2000 for $400,000. And the prior town managers would send correspondence on a regular basis to people, get this done within 2013, and it will go from one to another. And it actually got done in 2016, which was fiscal year 2017, for $193,000 that turned into $253,000, and I couldn't find where the $400,000 was. So I said you should probably look into this, because
It was designated in the rainy day fund as a marked item at $400,000. That was marked since 2006. And also, you should have documentation from the fire department, because we went for extensions.
The
state fire marshal.
State Fire Marshal's Office allowed the
Correct.
town extensions for a period of
And
time.
that was earmarked for years in the rainy day fund. Even when the rainy day fund says we're down to 270, it still showed as earmarked 400,000 for the, that, and there was also a 500-something thousand sitting there for, Ward 3 drainage project. So that has been earmarked since 2006. I don't know how that was missed. I really don't.
well, no, the resolution says $400,000.
Because it finally got done in 2016, 17.
There was a
But again,
differential between what was budgeted and estimated in 2006 and to what was actually spent in 2013, 14. Just so you
there
understand
used
the
to be a
differential.
$600,000
The
expense.
resolution in 2012 was for $400,000 to come out of the general funds,
So, Charlie,
to
just,
be done in 2013,
But
fiscal
again-
year 2013.
here's what happened with that. When we privatized 788 Sports, the original contract, the first contract in 2010, said that 788 Sports was gonna take over and assume the responsibilities of all maintenance, including the fire sprinkler system. In 2012, the new contract came forward, which personally I had no part of, but I did read the contract. And that contract said that now the town would take back the responsibility, increased his rent from $2,500 a month to $10,400, might be off a couple $100.
Pretty close.
But that's what happened. So between 2010 and 2010 and 14, then we assumed the responsibilities back over in 14, 15 after the bankruptcy. So that's where all that came from. I just want to clarify that.
Well, maybe I should have spent a lot of time with you.
Probably me and Councilman Badula, because we were here from 2006 on, but I would have been happy to sit down with you.
So I don't, if there's, any questions, I mean, I've got a lot of documentation. I think Dave kind of
Is that
verified.
documentation that's not in the, do we have that documentation? Is it that
The-
report documentation? Or
The city has documents,
Or is that
stuff-
your notes that you're talking about?
No, I
all
would have liked to have talked to, this Presley guy, but I understand he's in,
Virginia.
well, I heard Pennsylvania, but somewhere, not here. And so I can't, if I can't validate stuff, I can't put it in the report, but I wanted to point out that there's some, I was confused as to what was done, where the money came from, where it went, why they were transferring money in. I mentioned it to the town manager, and he was very helpful in getting some answers, but, I know that the Civic Center is a hot button item, okay? And you may want to find out what exactly was done, what's the exact condition, and what needs to be done, moving forward, because it's a tremendous resource for the town.
Would Kristen have information? I mean, I know she's brand new, but would she have back records, Ernie? I don't know if you,
She's right here.
oh, sorry. Do you have back records? Like, how far back can you go as far as?
There's a lot of documentation in the audits.
Because it's just, I mean, I'm sure it's, pre-Lori, I'm sure, just to close this loop. And I do have a question, again, I'll bring up the contract again. Would you work without a contract? If you and Ernie spoke out in the hall, or you and somebody else spoke in the hall, but this is your scope, this is what you're gonna do, we're gonna pay you this much money. On a handshake.
Counselor, if, it's a member of the community and they know the players and you take them at the word, maybe I would have. It's tough for me to answer, but the person lived up to the contract, to the agreement.
I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, if it's not in writing, I mean, I'll ask the solicitor. Maybe I'm off base, but should it be in writing? Anybody we do business with?
Any contract should be in writing, yes. It should not be an
So that
oral-
way it would not,
It should not be an oral agreement, and the recommendations or the opinions as to who's conducting the negotiations always should be reduced to writing, so everyone can see it and everyone knows what's going on.
thank you.
But this oral agreement matter that's been in, limbo for the last, Lori's been here for, all right? That needs to be addressed, and it also needs to be addressed through collective bargaining, which is going to be coming up.
Again,
As to whether or not she's gonna be a director out of the union or in the union, that's
Okay.
all for further negotiations.
Mr. Solicitor, I got a question. Not every employee here has a contract. Kristen, do you have a contract? So we hire her at her dollar amount, and we fulfill that. We don't have a contract with Kristen.
No, but you have,
Dave, do you have a
you have a
contract?
contract, you have a contract
David does
system.
not have a contract.
But, Mr.
But
President,
again, Mr. Solicitor, I want to clarify, when we hire somebody through HR gives you your salary, your benefits, and whatever else it may be. It's not in writing, so that's where I'm confused by this. Yes, we do have a contract for the police chief and fire chief.
right, but the
No, not
civic,
even the fire
the
chief, but the
civic
police chief
center,
is the only one.
civic center has always been an anomaly in this town because of how it started with the school committee, and the school had it under its complete control. Then it was transferred to the town, then it became a private institution, then it came back to the town due to a bankruptcy. So when Lori was hired, whether it was through personnel or through the human resources or the town manager's office, there's always a question of, for example, besides your salary, you get, you don't get bonuses, but you get commissions. No other department head in West Warwick gets a commission for doing their work. So that particular part of her contract always should be in writing because you have differentials. So police and fire have, department heads have contracts, other department heads don't have contracts. But the council knows full well, at least you and I do, what's been going on for the past 20 years at the Civic Center. And the fact of the matter is, if it's going to be unionized or non-unionized, as the efficiency expert has indicated, the contract issue should be in writing as to commissions. work schedule, things of that nature, because it's a little bit different than being the Department of Public Works, where you're there Monday through Friday, or the police and fire, where you're sometimes working 36 hours straight. So, I mean, that position up there has always been an anomaly. It's always been problematic for the town. So in this
And it-
instance,
it
I would agree that it
protects-
should be in writing.
It protects her, it protects us, it protects the town. That's all I'm saying. I don't care if it's 10 cents or $1 million, it's irrelevant.
May I suggest we are again getting off topic a little bit, and suffice it to say that we all understand that the Civic Center needs some work, we need to address it, we need to look at it, and unless anybody has any other questions, I would recommend that we move on.
At this point, I mean, this is all stuff that needs to be discussed
Absolutely.
contract-wise.
Absolutely.
And you're looking at his structure, whether you agree with his structure or not.
But it's his
don't-
recommendation,
It's
and
his
that's fine.
recommendation,
That's
we can
correct.
take it.
That's
And-
correct.
Or we can work around it, or we can work with it. But at this point, you know, we got his recommendation here, and I think Councilwoman Williamson is right there that we do move forward.
The only other thing I want to mention on the Civic Center is it really has procedures in place. In, you know, not in the key findings, but, you know, when I went into the description of the business practices, you can see that, you know, in my definition of they have, they follow, they have procedures, they have a good marketing strategy, they have clear-cut, you know, marketing, you know, requirements. And so there's really nothing I could recommend to improve upon that, other than, you know, what I think you should look into the finances. I think you should tighten them up a little bit. The concession stand has been addressed, you know, with the procurement of a purchase and sales system that's going to be able to inventory the material and the supplies coming in and going out. I know that was an issue, information I couldn't verify, because the person that was in charge of that is evidently out on some sort of an injury. But I know that's going in the right direction with the procurement of that system. So, you know, I try to point that out a little bit in the description of what actually is currently going on at the Civic Center. So, I mean, I covered you know, a lot of ground in this report, and hopefully it's helpful and it can be used as a blueprint, you know, to get things going in the right, to keep them going in the right direction. And happy to answer questions now, or you can give me a call at any time, and, you know, if you need any kind of follow-up. If there's more questions, I'm not in a rush to get out of here. I'm
Any
here as long as you
questions for
want me.
Charlie from council? Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
At this point, again, from the council's perspective, you know, we're gonna probably have to do more follow-up with this, with Ernie, possibly another workshop, probably more towards a workshop, an executive session to discuss negotiations and whatever else is gonna be moving forward. So at this point, can I get a motion?
A motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. 5-minute recess. And we'll be starting the council meeting.
Aaron, did you get my email yesterday?